operation of law after 45 days. If they don't respond to it, you have the right to file a lawsuit. My name is Leo Terrell, L-E-O-T-E-R-R-E-L-L. I am the attorney for Latice Sutton. Three of my associates, Tony Sue, Wendy Wing, and Monica Banks, are also attorneys in my office. And today at 9 o'clock, we filed a lawsuit against the Sheriff's Department, the County of Los Angeles, and 9 officers of the LA County Sheriff Department. And we sued the LA County for one reason. They are responsible for the missing status of Mitrice Richardson. Everyone in this country knows that on September 16, 2009, Mitrice Richardson was picked up by the LA County Sheriff Department, taken to the Lost Hills Sheriff Station, and at 12:30 at night, released in total darkness, without keys, without a car, without identification, without money. And since that night, up until today, she has been missing. Now, the sad part about it is this should not have happened. And the LA County Sheriff Department was grossly negligent. And the officers on that shift, grossly negligent in allowing her to leave and walk out without any form of communication with her family or friends. I will submit to you that if Mitrice Richardson's name was Lindsay Lohan or Britney Spears, she would not have been afforded the same treatment. She would have been treated with royalty, with a car. Now, this lawsuit is also necessary because Mitrice Sutton, who I represent, the mother of Mitrice Richardson, have been denied and stonewalled by not only the LA County Sheriff Department, but by the LAPD. This magical lawsuit will allow me to interview, depose, examine every single officer that night. It would allow me to get every single document generated by the LA County Sheriff Department. This magical lawsuit will allow me to obtain every single document in the hands of the Los Angeles Police Department, and to examine and depose the detectives involved in this case. It's important for the public to know that when Mitrice Richardson became missing, the LA County Sheriff Department punted this case to the LAPD. Their argument was, since she lives in Los Angeles, LAPD should conduct the investigation, not the LA County Sheriff Department. That illogical argument would conclude that if I live in Los Angeles and I traveled to Boston and I was lost in Boston, would LAPD be responsible for conducting the investigation? LA County Sheriff Department had an obligation to conduct that initial investigation into the missing status of Mitrice Richardson. It is also quite important to know that the gist of this lawsuit talks about the mental disability that Mitrice Richardson had that night and forms the basis for why the Sheriff Department was negligent. The Sheriff Department should have held Mitrice Richardson, and they had the obligation to hold Mitrice Richardson, not only as a 5150 case, which gives them the 3-day hold, but under the American with Disabilities Act, a civil rights violation, which requires public governments, public institutions to treat disabled individuals the same way as everyone else. They failed to take that into consideration. The LA County Sheriff Department had knowledge when they received the 911 call from Joffrey's that a woman was acting bizarre, strange, talking to people she didn't know. acting out of the ordinary. They saw this conduct. They ignored the conduct. They had an obligation to respond to the conduct, and they failed to respond. It's interesting to note that after the LAPD conducted this investigation, an article came out where, after reviewing the personal diary of Mitrice Richardson, they had a health practitioner conclude that she had a bipolar condition. Well, why in the world did the LA County Sheriff Department fail to see that? That is the negligence. That's the violation of the ADA. That's the 5150. We're also alleging in our lawsuit an unlawful arrest. And I want to explain the basis of that. There was an offer to pay that bill. Mitrice Richardson should not have been arrested. There was a willingness and an offer to pay the bill. The Sheriff Department knew that. The restaurant knew that. The grandmother said, we will pay the bill. Joffrey and the Sheriff Department failed to recognize that. I am going to find out from Joffrey's if they ever allowed any other person to say, oh yeah, we'll let someone come by and pay the bill for you. Because I find it unusual for them to refuse payment. I can order a pizza over the phone with my credit card. I can order books and gifts for holiday season with my credit card. Why wouldn't Joffrey's accept the credit card of Mitrice Richardson grandmother? I don't understand that. I want to also mention, if you look at we have included the police report in this. And I want you to look at and see in the original police report if there's any reference to a field sobriety test. There isn't any. But in the supplemental brief, the supplemental report, a week after the incident, a day after we held a press conference at the sheriff's station, guess what? A supplemental police report was generated and said a field sobriety test was taken. Now I submit to you, when was that test taken, where, and why was it put in the supplemental report and not in the original report? I find that quite interesting. I want to mention one other fact, and I suggest you talk to Steve Whitmore. When we held that initial press conference, and I asked Steve Whitmore myself if there's any videotapes, if there's anything on film regarding the departure of Mitrice Richardson, and the answer was a resounding no. Guess what? 3 months later, Captain Martin realized that he had a tape of Mitrice Richardson at the station and leaving. I'm going to get that tape. I'm going to get that tape through this lawsuit. I'm going to release it. I'm going to get that tape because that's the frustration Ms. Sutton has experienced for the last 10 months. A failure of the LA County Sheriff Department, a failure of the LAPD to be honest and upfront about the status of her daughter.